Hey, how's everyone doing?
Was the chief going to join us?
No.
I wish we would have a few more people here. Jeez. Well, good afternoon. I'm going to go like this, I guess. My name is Matt Lindstrom. I teach in the Poli-Sci Department. I direct the McCarthy Center, and as many of you know, we host this particular series of events called Politics in a Pint, wherein we hope to promote civil dialogue and education and information and debate and discussion about pertinent, salient, important public policy issues, whether they're at the international level, whether they're at the national level, state level, or in this case, local level, right in your backyard. So, and I think it's a great opportunity here. We have two guests from the city of St. Joe who've kindly agreed to come to campus and to kind of serve as sounding board, say a few words, answer questions. I think the format really will be primarily Q&A. So before we proceed, I do want to just say, you know, we want to respect our guests, obviously. We want to have a civil dialogue. We want to have a responsible dialogue. I think it's really important that we do get kind of factual answers. We all might, you know, leave the room tonight with very different conclusions and all that. That's what democracy is all about, and that's perfectly fine. So we will be proceeding into Q&A in a little bit. I would like our guests to introduce themselves, say a little bit, their title and what they do at the city, and perhaps explain a little bit about these two, the keg permit rule and then the social host ordinance. And I'd like to have them clarify what these entail, what they mean, basically. The consequences we can talk about, and pros and cons and what have you. But before we proceed, I do have a gift from the McCarthy Center to Brother Willie's Pub, and I'd like Shane to come up if he's still here. Shane was a little nervous about this gift. He wanted to know what it was all about and everything. But Shane is the manager of Brother Willie's, and what we did is we framed this front page St. Cloud Times article, which features one of our Politics in a Pint sessions. I think this is on the election or debriefing on the election. So, thanks for hosting us over the years.
Thank you.
And Shane, that's not for your apartment, and that's for right. So anyway, we have more information about McCarthy Center up here. And last thing I want to say is, for those of you that have been to these Politics in a Pint before, you know that we always give a very coveted and highly sought after gift to our guests. And so it's especially fitting, perhaps, that we're going to share these pint glasses, or you know, water, soda, whatever you want to put in them, with our two guests. So thank you for coming, Mayor. All right, Councilman. Oh no. Well, hey. Kegs are legal. We're going to talk about that. We do want to, when our speakers are talking. Keg, we're going to hear all about kegs and social host ordinance, what that means, and also pay attention, what it doesn't mean. And that's, I think, just as important. So, with that, we'll turn to Councilmember C. Frank. Want to introduce yourself a little bit and couple minutes each, and then we'll move on.
Well, I'm a professor like you, so 2 minutes is not going to work for me. I'm the one that passed out the handouts for you. So, kind of glad to be back here. It's been a while since my wife retired. My son graduated from the prep school in St. John's, and I actually taught a class or two out here. So, got to get back out here more.
Closer or farther?
Yeah, I really like being on a campus at closer. Okay. Where we can drink. I wish we could on our campus. I have a view that the bar owners are the biggest obstacle to it. So when I was teaching my state and local class many, many years ago, I became aware of the social host ordinance, kind of started in Shakopee. From the data that you see, over half the state, most of the cities that you all from, have a social host ordinance. Roughly 45% of the state of Minnesota, including most of the cities I suspect that most of you are from. About 12 to 15 states have some variation, so this is not an outlier. This is a widely spreading thing across the country. So we're not the first, we're not the last. And being a political scientist, that's how I approach it. So when I first heard it, I tend to be an incrementalist. When I teach my state and local, hopefully, and you got some great people here, whether James Reed or one of my former students back at Washington State who actually typed, you wouldn't know what that is, but carbon paper, my doctoral dissertation at Kay Wolfsburg. Show how far back we go. She took my state and local way back at Washington State when I was a research teaching assistant. But being an incrementalist, and I was on the council, this is my 6th year, I think, or so on the council. I never like to be first. An advantage of federalism or having other cities is to see how it works. And now, as I said, we have, I want to say 15, 20 counties. I've mentioned 45% of the state. Most of the cities, as I said, if you look at that list of any size, kind of have it, especially college towns, Northville, Winona, Mankato, Duluth, what have you. These are quite common, as I said. I want to see if it, how it worked. This is could be. So then one of the handouts that I gave you, because St. Cloud adopted theirs a few years, about 2-3 years ago. So one of the handouts, I asked the city attorney, is it working? And so you can see they put it in 2010. This is just the city of St. Cloud. I suspect if you looked at every other city or county in this state or across the country, you pretty much find the same kind of data. So, for example, in terms of social host violations, just in the city of St. Cloud, 2010 there was 90. Enforcement began in August 2010 in St. Cloud. In 2011 it went down to 39. In 2012 it went down to 30. Disruptive intoxication, 2010, 14, 2011, 7, 2012, 3. Noise violations, 2008, 418. 2012 down to 188. Stephen also pointed out in his note that reports on the St. Cloud Hospital emergency room admissions for overconsumption of alcohol and extreme intoxication laws have been trending down. And it's their experience that social host has been a very effective tool. Just another kit in the toolkit. I've been teaching a long, long time, going on to almost 50 years at a variety of universities and that around this country. If you were to ask college administrators, and I thought we were going to have a couple of the deans here too.
One dean's coming in a little bit. Yeah.
And it's been a long time since I've been involved in administration or those kinds of things. But I do survey work for those of you that follow political things. I heard of the St. Cloud State Survey and Nate Silver and things like that. You're aware of our survey. And so I pay attention to polls. And I saw a poll not too many years ago of college presidents. And they were asked to name their top problems on their campus. Now this is colleges. And they said, you know, the standard, parking, food, and alcohol. And alcohol, because it was related to most of their sexual abuse could be alcohol related, and also damage across property. They were spending on many campuses thousands and thousands of dollars, replacing broken windows, stolen signs, things like that, that they just as soon have their money spent on something else. So I look at this as part of, you know, the college is doing its thing, we're doing our thing, but it's just a tool to deal with what I think are some known problems. They seem to be effective, and I probably only have a year or two left on the council. And if the data weren't supporting that it works, I'd be the first to say, let's revise it. The keg ordinance, it's widely used, but I don't think it's any big deal. It's a way to kind of keep track so people like our chief can know what's going on. But when I see hundreds of people going through my yard about 100 feet away with backpacks, I know it's not kegs, so I have a pretty good idea what's going on. But it's just another tool. And the same with the noise ordinance. It's just all a package. So those are my just initial thoughts, man.
Thank you. Absolutely, yeah. Mayor, introduce yourself a little bit, and if we can get the microphone.
Well,
Yeah.
I'll yell so you can all hear me.
We just want to record it, though. So.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. I'll sit. I'll sit.
You can stand up. You can stand up. Just point it.
Okay. Okay, so my name's Rick Schultz. I'm the mayor of St. Joseph. This is my 3rd year as mayor. And I haven't done near as much statistics work as Mr. Frank to my left, but I will tell you, I want to talk a little bit about the process by how we came to implementing ordinances, specifically the ones we're talking about. And what we do is we take staff's direction. In other words, council members may have an idea, staff may have an idea, we see a problem, we attack the problem by not just ordinances, but by any means available to us. We realize that, you know, again, there's a considerable amount of partying that goes on the weekends in St. Joe. And we get reports from our chief about what's going on and what other towns are doing, what other towns similar to St. Joe are doing. St. Peter, Northfield, Winona, you know, Bemidji, Duluth, and what they're doing to it to not only control it, but also react to what residents. And so just so you understand, while your constituents, there's a whole nother town of residents that also have a say in how they want their town run. So we take that recommendation from the chief, from staff, and we evaluate it. Say, what do we want it to read? What do we want it to look like? Is it going to be harmful for these guys? Is it going to be harmful for this? What use will it be? What's positive and negative? We thrash it around a little bit. We hold a public hearing. Everybody's invited to the public hearing. It's announced in the papers. It's announced in the Times. It's put on our bulletin board. It's put on our website. Anybody can come to the public hearing and say, it's a bad thing. It's a good thing. We take that feedback. We mash it around again. Comes back to the council, at which time, you know, we either vote on it positively, vote on it negatively, or goes back into discussion, goes back to tabling it and doing something else, you know, rewriting it, whatever. So we followed all those steps. As a matter of fact, we had 4 good discussions. We had public hearing, very little to do with, very little feedback, if I remember, at the public hearing. Certainly wasn't packed, but like this. And we implemented it based on feedback from St. Cloud, based on feedback from our staff, and based on knowledge of what's happening in the other communities similar to ours. So I mean, that's how we arrived at where we're at today. Nothing unusual about what we did, and the ordinances we're talking about are similar to, I mean, they're not out of the blue. They actually copy some of what we do in St. Cloud, some of what we do in Winona. So they're not unusual by any means. I want to say one more thing about the keg ordinance. The keg ordinance, you know, again, I'm not sure how it was prior to that. It might have been all the kegs you wanted in the world, and now we're down to 1. And there is a Minnesota state statute. It's 312, Minnesota state statute 312 subdivision 06 or something that requires everybody that sells a keg to put a tag on it. So if you need to trace it back, you know, they have some information on who bought it, where they live, and so if there's an incident and there's a keg violation, we can go back to the retailer that sold it. Well, our ordinance goes like a little step farther. It's, you know, it's not trying to limit what you do, but it certainly gives us another tracking mechanism that is going to help us. And so I'm like Steve. I may not only be here one more year, but anyway, that's about all I really have to say.
Good.
I'll open up the questions unless
like
Chief wants to say something. Or?
We do have the chief here, St. Joe City Police. Appreciate your attendance, and like I believe you said earlier, you'd be willing to answer any questions
We'll bug
that
you later.
students may have. And speaking of that, I guess, you know, former Senator Moynihan once said that you're entitled to your own opinion, but you're not entitled to your own facts. And so with that in mind, let's just kind of clarify a little bit on the keg ordinance and the social host for those of us that aren't totally up to speed on exactly kind of what these mean and what they, just to clarify a little bit, maybe we can start with the keg ordinance for what is that, just in a minute or 30 seconds or whatever.
Well, we define what a keg is, and a keg is anything that has to be tapped. We allow anybody coming in to purchase only one. And I do want to mention that, you know, I'm not sure the outcry here, but you're not the only ones. Residents have also issued their concern about 1 keg limit. And only because they're not looking at 16-gallon kegs, they're looking at 3- and 5-gallon kegs from craft beer that also have to be tapped that violate the limit. So, and also retailers have expressed concern because if I only can sell 1 to 1 person, then I'm losing business. So, you know, again, we're weighing all the things. You know, this is something that we do. So anyway, that's
Good.
the keg
And
ordinance.
just to
behind
clarify too, so it's 1 keg per residence?
it. I think
1 keg per person?
per residence.
Per resident?
Yeah.
Per
Resident.
address?
Per address.
Yeah, per address, okay. Good. Chief, thanks for coming up. Absolutely. That's why we saved you the chair up here,
We
Chief.
did.
We knew you'd join us. Councilman Frank, do you want to touch on that, on the keg? And Chief, you want to address that, the factual?
Was that right?
That's my glass.
Yeah, please don't take the councilman's pint glass. There's an ordinance on that too, I'm sure, Chief. But here you go.
There is.
It's called theft.
There is, but I
we
get to,
can't.
there is, but I get to enforce it.
That's right.
There you go. My interpretation.
Greater than $50?
Basically, the keg ordinance is not changed except for the fact that you need to register your kegs.
Right.
Otherwise, you're allowed to have 1 keg on the premises at a time.
At a time.
So if we're dealing with a house party that we're dealing with in town, it means that house may have 1 keg on the premises at a time. Now, does that mean that you can have 2 kegs? The answer is yes, but not on the residence or on the premises at the same time. So, what does that mean? It means that if you have 4 people living in the house, and as we know by the keg ordinance, you can only have 1 keg every 30 days. Does that mean that if another guy wants to have a keg registered, or gal, and registers it in their name, can they do that? The answer is yes. The only thing you have to do and make sure of is that they're not on the premises at the same time.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk a little bit about where you have rental property, okay? The projects. Anybody here know where the projects are at? Yeah.
No.
Never heard of it before. At the projects, each one of the rental properties is considered a separate residence. Okay? So that means you have, what? Well, since they used to call it the 8-plex, I would assume there's 8 residences there, right? Each residence can have their own keg, 1 keg at a time, which means that you take the other keg back and bring the next keg in, that's fine. So you're still allowed to have, none of that has changed. The only difference now is the fact that you must register your kegs ahead of time. So what does that mean? You need to go to City Hall between 8 and 4:30, Monday through Friday. You need to go in and fill out an application. One of the things that the application also has to it is the fact that you've got to get permission from your landlord in order to have the party for the keg. Now, let's think about this for a second, all right? A lot of you, and I've talked to a lot of the landlords, have a stipulation in your rental agreements that you can't have any kegs there, right? Is that fair to say? Some do, some don't. All right. Well, this is kind of being upfront with your landlord, because what we end up seeing is the landlord finds out about it after the party's going on, and we get a noise complaint, and we end up having to go in and enforce it. We call him and say he's now got a noise complaint against his property because they had a keg party going on. Who do you suppose loses by the time it's done? You do, because now the landlord takes your deposit that you had and keeps it, because most of them have it written right in their agreements that you're going to forfeit that if you're in violation. So is it better to be above board and get their permission ahead of time so that they're not calling us and we come in and bust your party? I think there's some validity to that. So in a roundabout way, kind of bringing it back to dead center again, the keg ordinance has not changed at all as far as how many you can have on premises. The only difference is now you got to register them.
Thanks, Chief. I think that's exactly what we're trying to get here is the facts. Can we just briefly talk about the social host, just to clarify a little bit on the facts of that and what that entails?
I guess for me, I just as soon take and answer any questions that people may have, but just
Okay.
to kind of sum up the social host ordinance,
Yeah.
to sum it all up, you're responsible for the property at which you live at, be it an apartment or be it a residence in the city of St. Joseph, be it a student or be it a person who's not a student. All you have to be is responsible for your actions. Okay? What does that mean? It means that if you're holding a party and you've got underage people drinking there, you're in violation because you're in charge of those people that are there. The law is being broken. That's where and the reason the social host came about was about roughly 10 years ago. Young man in the blue shirt, I'll get to you. I'll remember you, I promise. Who was he again? Anyway, if many of you remember, probably about 10 years ago or less, the young lad that was at a house party in the city of Chaska, and he froze to death in the street because he had been drinking too much. He was supposedly walking home, and the next morning the police officers found him face down in the street. He had froze to death. Chaska was actually the city that led the way for social host. And the police chief of Chaska is a very good friend of mine, and I happened to sit on the board of directors of the Minnesota Police Chiefs Association when all this was going down. The thing has evolved a lot since then. And again, we're not unique, as the mayor and the councilman said, as far as our social host is concerned. Many of the cities, especially the ones with college communities in them, have the social host. If anything, we're the community that's probably one of the late bloomers coming through. Why did we do that? Because we wanted to do it right. Some of these social host ordinances had to be tweaked to make sure that they would be that they would hold up to the Supreme Court. And St. Cloud's, when they first came out with it, had a problem with it and wound up having to tweak their social host ordinance. And they did, to the point where it holds up and it makes the scrutiny in the court system. So that's where we're at right now. We would have, in the beginning, and the mayor and the councilman can attest to this, we've been looking at this for quite a while, at least for 2 to 3 years. And we just finally, we wanted to do it right, and this is when it rolled out. We wanted to make sure it would hold the test in court and that it was fair for everybody concerned. That's kind of the social host.
Appreciate it. Once again, I want to thank our guests, for showing up and answering questions. Our guests may not be aware of the context in which you are walking into this these two campuses. There's there's a number of other things going on campus that this kind of feeds into, and so that kind of perhaps connects to some of the questions or anxiety or anger or whatever. We do have a couple of wireless microphones that we're going to circulate around, so if you have a question, comment, once again, keep it civil. That'd be great. Raise your hand. We have a couple. So we have Alex Ritchie with a microphone here, Drew right here. Why don't any questions up from top row? Anyone? So maybe Drew, why don't you get off your chair and get upstairs? Mr. Ritchie, you have a question here.
Yeah. Just to clarify, for the permission for the keg, is the permission just verbal or is it signature? What's permission?
From the.
Okay, the application that you fill out has to have a signature to it.
But from the
by
landlord.
the landlord.
That's correct.
Okay, so I know a buddy of mine lives at, I don't know what it's called, but his landlord lives in Florida. How does he get a signature at any point in time?
In most cases, what we're finding is that the landlord has given somebody permission to take and watch over their property. Again, this is something that you're going to have to check out a little ahead of time and find out who, in fact, would be that person who's been given the authority to sign for the landlord. And the thing is of course, the diligent police officers that we are, we will follow up with that if we end up with a violation, just to make sure that in fact that is the person who had to do it. But what this is going to do is you just got to plan a little bit more ahead of time. Okay? The big thing that I've told all of the students for the last 12 years that I've been police chief in St. Joe is, if you have a question, come and see us. I've had a very open door policy to that. I would much rather be proactive and answer your questions ahead of time than to be reactive and have to come out and start writing tickets. That's just a byproduct of my job and my officer's job. We would just as soon head off any problems and have something that's legal and everybody enjoys. But unfortunately, part of our job is also to keep the peace and repose in the city of St. Joe, which means that you may have to do a little bit more planning on your part to have a gathering on the weekend or anywhere else.
Thanks, Chief. Over here. And Breyer, Drew Stummis, where are you? Up top here? Over here, Mr. Ritchie. Oh, by the way, you want to just introduce yourself too? We should have done that right off the bat. Just say your name, maybe.
Hi, Christian Forrester. I live at the projects. In our lease, it's specifically stipulated that we are allowed by our landlord to have 1 keg per residence at any given time. And obviously, both our signatures are on that lease, so we already have permission from our landlord to do that. So I don't see why we need another signature from him on a permit if he's already given us permission to do that. Can you just...
Would you need another one? Would they need another one?
Yes,
or?
they'll still need to get the signature on the permit.
Well, he also lives in Maple Grove, so it's like an hour drive for him to come up here. So I just don't see it being worth his time for him to drive all the way
Can you
from...
scan it, though? Can you scan an email and that kind of thing? Or do you...
It's rather interesting because I'm very familiar with your landlord, and according to him, he doesn't allow kegs on his property. At least that's what I've been told.
It's in our lease.
Yeah, that's you live at and
I think
Rock
it's
Properties
a new
is it.
thing he did this
Okay.
year on his lease.
That may very well be. So what you'll need to do is talk to him ahead of time, and get him if you're going to have that. And I know he's around because he owns property in St. Cloud, St. Joseph, and I believe in Alexandria. So he's down here all the time. If you're going to have a party, all you need to do is just talk to him ahead of time.
Just to clarify, though, could they email the permit to a landlord in Florida, have the landlord in Florida sign it, scan it back?
No, we'd need an original signature.
Just to clarify.
Well, let me put this to you this way, okay?
I mean, you could forge it. Clarify.
Yeah, I mean, let's be realistic.
Hang on, guys. Come on, let the chief speak.
You know, let's be realistic. If you're taking a look for an original signature, are you going to, and it's a legal document, are you going to take something that's signed by and faxed into you necessarily? I mean, you got to be a little real here and put yourself in our shoes, okay?
Good. A couple other questions up top. Hey, introduce yourself up top. Where are you up top? Hello.
Hello.
Okay. Speak up.
Joe Canale, I'm a senior here.
Joe.
From what I've heard
Right
from
over
you,
here.
Chief, right over here, sorry. The only changes is now we need to register the keg, fill out the application, have a signature. I was reading somewhere, I don't know where, but I thought there was a $5 fee that we had to pay. With your explanation, it made it seem like you just wanted one more step where you guys would know where the kegs are going to be, so you could focus where the troops were going to be, or the officers. So if it really is just about knowing where things are to keep things under control, why the $5 arbitrary fee? Now, you guys have brought up Winona, the great College of St. Cloud State, and how we aren't yet like them, but I think one big difference, we have a lot more student debt. I don't have the exact numbers or any handouts, but I'm pretty sure that we have a lot more student debt. So I think this random $5 arbitrary fee doesn't make any sense. When if it really is about our safety and knowing where things are for the residents, if we register it, get a signature, and know where it is, why do you want $5? It's such a low fee, yet you still need it.
So, $5 fee.
$5 fee was a fee that the city council came together so that it wasn't too high, so that students could afford it. We still have to cover the cost of our administrative people that are in the office. I think $5 is
Maybe
$5 doesn't even cover the time that we have in the office for people to do this. Like anything else, as you well know, nothing's for nothing anymore. I mean, there's got to be. Right now, we're taking a look at a lot of things that we have to cover our costs for. The other thing I'd like to touch about is your debt. But the other thing I'd kind of like to touch on a little bit too is, I don't care how rich you are or how poor you are. Any way, shape, or form that you look at it, and unfortunately or fortunately, I've done this for 34 years, and I'm getting ready to retire, but one of the things that I've dealt a lot with is underage drinking, and I've dealt with alcohol deaths and problems that we deal with alcohol. The vast majority of the motor vehicle accidents that I've had to take dead people out of were alcohol related. Every year that I've been here for the past 12 years, we've come very close to losing students because of alcohol poisoning. I think, unequivocally say all of them were underage. There may have been a couple, I can't say for sure, but the vast majority of those people were underage. I guess I don't see the correlation between being able to follow the rules and deal with this and having the fact that you pay more for college or you may be richer or poorer. I take a look at it from the standpoint of public safety. Each one of you that are out there right now came to college because you want to get an education and you want to go out into the world and you want to make money. And for the vast majority of you, the reason you came here is because the two universities that you're going to right now are very well known throughout the United States, and the jobs that you can get and you can be connected with pay very well. Would that be fair to say?
I hope so.
Okay, you hope so, right? That's why you're here. If you weren't, you'd be somewhere else doing something else. So, but
Good.
But the fact that I'm trying to make here is, do you understand that in the case of some of these underage parties that we've had, and you get caught serving alcohol to some of these people and somebody dies, do you realize that there's the possibility that somebody can come to you, sue you for serving this alcohol to somebody who died, and possibly garnish your wages for the rest of your life before you even get out there on the street? Do you realize that? Do you realize that in some of these parties where we've had people bailing out of second-story windows, and we've been, by the grace of God, nobody's broken their back or their legs, but if that happened, do you realize that you would be the ones that are going to be sued for this? And in this day and age of litigation, and most of you sitting here are very well aware of what the laws are and how things are going, before you even get started, not only are you going to be in debt as a student, but you could be in debt for just having a party similar to this. That's where our concern lies, and that's why we try to prevent these things.
Thanks, Chief. Do we have a St. Ben's student who has a question? Do we have a St. Ben's student who has a question? Up top. Thank you. Introduce yourself as well, please.
My name is Rihanna Nelson, and I'm a senior. And you were talking about these public meetings where you talked about ordinances, and I feel like students should have been more noticed about them. I know a lot of these students here would definitely have attended if they would have known more about them. We don't really look at the St. Cloud Times very often. We have New York Times and other publications of that sort, so notice of that wasn't really announced to students, and I feel like as you said, there wasn't a lot of people against it, and I think there would have been a better opinion from the students if there was more notice of that. So, yeah.
Well, number one, and I love that question because one of the things that, again, as a group from a city is, we need to reach out, and I've asked, since I've taken office, I've always asked that same question. How do you guys want to get involved? And what's the best vehicle for getting involved? And to date, I still have no firm grasp on what the right vehicle is. Is it? Okay, I'm not going to come here every week for that. But I'm just saying, I'm out on Facebook, and I've responded to some Facebook entries for this thing you got going on, and we publish it in all the right vehicles. Should it be published in the record? Would you read the record?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
Do we publish the record? I mean, I don't know that we do, but
Yeah.
I believe we have the editor-in-chief of the record, and I think she wouldn't mind.
But again, I don't know. To us, it's a
Good
free service.
Good point.
And we send it to the Times, we send it to the news leader, we put it on our bulletin board. I've asked the question many times. I just haven't got response from this body on what it is.
And this event, by the way, is co-sponsored, I should have said this earlier, by the College of St. Benedict Student Senate, as well as the St. John's University Student Senate. And those two entities perhaps could do some follow-up on this exact question of getting some type of student liaison to the city of St. Joe.
And it may be, just one last thought, it may be that your own administration needs to, because I'm pretty sure they're aware of what's going on in the city. And it's very possible they need to reach out as well.
You think you just earned some friends with that comment, maybe?
Well, I'm just saying, I don't know what vehicle they might use,
Sure.
but there may be another vehicle there I'm not aware of.
If I could
Good point.
if I could say something, education is a reciprocal act. It's two ways. Every year we get a couple students that come before the council and say they're the student representatives, they're the liaison, and I don't think we ever see them again.
Right.
Yep.
So it's a two-way act. It's two ways.
Of course, St. Joe, many of you know that we've had a tradition of recent grads becoming involved directly with the St. Joe city government and whether two particular mayors, I'm thinking
No,
of.
here's one more thing. If you live in St. Joe, we have a variety of commissions and boards that if you want to get involved, I'll gladly take your name. In 3 years I've been here, I haven't yet to see one name of one student apply for any position in St. Joe. So if you want to get involved, let me know.
Good. Nice invitation. Let's keep moving on. Where are the microphones? Over here. Introduce yourself, please.
Hi, Kurt Baldwin, first year. What are the ordinances doing for, are they pushing underage drinking back into the dorms, into like Mary and Tommy?
I guess we don't know.
Yeah, the ordinance is relatively new, so we don't know where, underage or, not legal at drink age, where they congregate to anymore. I mean, we're going to have to watch it for a while and see what happens. I mean, it's just like any other ordinance.
Can I ask a question? Maybe this is going out on a limb a little bit, but it won't be the first time I've done this. Raise your hand if you've been carded at a party of your peers. You went to a house party, and your peers basically made sure, somehow carded you, make sure you're 21. Raise your hand. Okay, just curious.
How many have been to parties that haven't been?
Okay, maybe you do, and I'm just saying you don't need to, but just wondering.
How many of you walk in freely?
Right. We have a follow-up question. Other questions? Oh,
yeah, we had questions up here. Up here.
Up here.
Yeah, I had 2 points to bring up. One about the meetings. There are 2 meetings where you talked about the social ordinance or the keg rule, right? 2 of the council meetings.
There were several. One public and some other discussion at the council level.
Okay. On the 2 public ones that I saw on your records, the first one had 1 other person there, and the second one had 0 people.
Yep.
Do you get many people showing up to these meetings? Anyone, not just students?
It kind of depends. It kind of depends on what we're talking about.
Okay.
That's
so
pretty
that
normal.
was
that's
pretty.
All our meetings are televised, so a lot of the discussion that we get is after the fact, where people have actually seen the television or seen it replayed, and then we'll get feedback from residents who have seen it and have questions or comments.
Okay.
Matt, if I could respond just a
Yeah,
little bit too.
Councilman Frank.
If I put my political science hat on, Matt, and correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, that's just not a problem with college students. Hopefully some of you read Bowling Alone by Robert Putnam. It's hard to get people involved.
In general.
In general.
Right.
Increasingly, let's say if there's 2 people in a relationship, they both work outside the home, they often commute 100 miles each way, they no longer have kids in school, used to be 50% would have kids, it's down to 25%. They used to work at the same factory, they would bowl together. So they often don't even know who their neighbor is anymore. They come home, shut the garage door, get on the net, watch TV, and they're tired and isolated. They're often working 2 jobs. So it's just not you. It's very difficult to get people involved, and we're not the only ones facing this kind of situation.
Okay.
All right, great.
I also had another question about the ordinance. Where in it does it say that you need a signature from your tenant? I just read through the entire thing. I couldn't see that. Do you know the specific location where it says that?
It's on the application.
But it's not in the ordinance.
No,
so you just add that to the application.
It's on the application.
But okay. So when people passed the ordinance, they didn't approve that part of it?
Yeah, I don't know.
So if it's not in there, it shouldn't be allowed on the application, right?
No.
I think it's a law.
No?
No.
Oh.
No, because
Okay.
as you well know, if you've ever filled out an application before, not everything is spelled out necessarily in an ordinance, but it does say that the person must fill out the application. And I believe on the application, that's where it states that you've got to have that signature. That does not have to be spelled out in the ordinance. It says you have to fill out the application.
It says you must fill in the application setting forth the applicant's full name, address, telephone number, address, where they'll be possessing the keg.
Yep.
It doesn't, but so it kind of outlined the application process within the ordinance.
Correct. It outlines it, but doesn't have everything on there. Doesn't need to. It says you must fill out the application.
All right, we're going to move on. Thanks for your question. Over here, we have a microphone. Introduce yourself again, please.
I am Jimmy Matson. I'm a senior here. I had a question for the mayor. So coming here to college, with the social ordinance and everything, I feel that, the main focus of the social ordinance is to, deteriorate underage drinking. Fair to say? Yes?
Certainly one of them.
Okay. And then, so with that being said, I think that kind of takes away, when I come here from the whole college experience, getting away, breaking free, doing that kind of thing. And so with that being said, with the, decline in, people here going to school, with the, decline in that, and with, also,
Help him out. Somebody help him out.
Okay, I'm going to ask a different question. So in my personal opinion, I think that these new ordinances are discriminatory towards students. But I have two parts to this question. Number one is I want to know how much push the school had on the city itself towards this when they have housing that they need to fill that's not filled. So trying to push kids away from St. Joseph to live in their housing. That's part one.
So that good. So
okay.
So I guess
then,
go ahead. What? So you'll get a follow up. Let's touch with that. So Pat's asking, to what extent did you hear from both schools on these particular ordinances? And I think Pat, you're specifically talking about the administration of the school?
Yes, I know the school donates a large sum of money to the city of St. Joseph,
It's not large.
Let's just stick with the one question.
$30,000.
Because that's another can of worms. That's another can of worms.
Wait a minute.
The one question is, to what extent was the college administration involved or not involved in the ordinances?
Correct.
Okay, let's do with that.
Well, and again, Mr. Jansky may want to respond as well, but
Sorry, I hit the microphone.
oh, sorry. When we're enacting any ordinances that may affect, we include them in discussions on a regular basis. So they're made aware of it. How much do they have a hand in framing it? Maybe. I don't know that they did any at all. I think most of that comes from our staff internally. So, and the other implication is that they're pushing it to move students out of St. Joe. I don't know that that's speculation. I wouldn't have any idea that would be.
Well, I don't
their
think it's
motive.
a secret that they're trying to make students live on campus for 4 years now.
And I think that's something you can take up with the college administration.
But again, that's not our.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Did you want to say?
Sure.
Okay.
We worked with.
And you have a follow-up.
Here, hold on.
And all right.
No, go ahead. I can do them both then.
Oh, yeah, and then the second part of my question was, I know there has been, yes, one person showing up to the city council meetings, but that doesn't mean that the students' opinions don't matter. I mean, we are a large percentage of your constituents here voting public, and I mean, you guys are sitting here and we're going to vote on you in a couple, years. I don't know what the exact term is. I'm not going to be here. I'm a senior. But I mean, this has definitely gotten people involved, and they're going to be voting on you guys. How do you explain this to them? Why should they vote for you when you run again? And why shouldn't they put someone in that, we could run a student that's going to change these?
And that's what's happened in the past. Let's ask the two elected. Members. We have two councilmen, so obviously the chief's not elected. So,
Well, number one, I like a fair fight when it comes to elections. I mean, I don't, come on, go ahead.
there you go.
I mean,
you heard it here first.
It's not a done deal. How would I justify it? I mean, we justify everything we do. We don't take decisions like this lightly at all. And it's not the only decision that sits before the city council. On a scale of 1 to 10, this might be a 7. Based on the budgets we have, the streets we have to fix, the what I would call growth factor that we have to expand infrastructure, the millions of dollars we have to spend, the speaking to legislatures to get other things done, the lack of LGA, again, I know it affects you deeply right now, but on a scale of 1 to 10 and what's really important to how to run a city, there are other residents that we have to respond to as well. And if you run, you have to respond to those other residents' needs as well. It's not just an issue about how do I get a keg and what's social host and all that. It's the entire package. And so, yeah, I certainly run. I think it's great. I don't have any problem with that. What I'm saying is it's just not one individual. Here's, and I'm going to simplify this. Every time we have some incident in St. Joe, whether it's college-related or street-related or water rates-related, we hear from residents. And right now we're hearing from you as residents. This isn't something you like. You're being treated unfairly. When water rates go up and your landlords have to pay it, we're treating them unfairly. When we have to assess for street costs, we're treating those residents unfairly. When garbage rates goes up, we're treating residents unfairly. I can only think of one instance in the 3 years I've been here where somebody's come up and said, hey, nice job, Rick, you're doing a great job. We evaluate everything that comes before the city, and while this is a hot button for you now, there are 10 or 12 other hot buttons across the city. So we're here, we're responding to it, we're trying to evaluate it. The ordinance is going to go forward, I mean it's in place, and we'll evaluate whether it's successful or not and whether it needs tweaking. But there are other hot buttons in the city, not just this one. Other residents would say this isn't such a hot button to them.
And once again, we do thank you, all three of you, for showing up today. Again, these folks didn't have to be here. And maybe this will inspire some of you in the room to
run.
Read the St. Cloud Times, or maybe the sentence will get involved in some more formal capacity. A couple other questions. Oh, up here.
What was the other question?
What was the other
I'm sorry, did you have a follow-up, Pat?
There's 2 questions there.
Did we miss one?
We have a mic up here. Kate, introduce yourself, please.
Hi, yes, I'm Kate Paul. I'm a junior. I'd like to echo my thanks to our panelists. It's a hard environment to be in. I'm just looking for some clarification on the part of the social host ordinance in terms of a resident being out of town while the house is subjected to the ordinance.
Oh, that's easy. Yeah.
I have heard of a case where a student was not in town, out of state, I believe, and returned the next morning, and the police came back and issued him a misdemeanor the night after. So could you just clarify, and you correct me if I'm wrong, could you clarify what the policy is if a resident is out of town?
Good question.
That wouldn't be him, would it?
I'm not aware of anybody that was out of town when they got a citation, so if that's the case, then they should come and see me. Here's the deal. If you don't have any knowledge that somebody's having a party where you live, you're fine.
It's the knowledge piece.
It's the knowledge piece that you have. And again, to kind of clarify this a little bit, there's 2 ways I'm going to look at this. One is student and one is a regular home, okay? Because this is not just students that we're dealing with. This covers everybody in the community, okay? If you're there, it's just kind of like the noise ordinance, okay? If you're renting there, you're responsible for the property at which you live, right? That's where you live. And if you're violating the noise ordinance, then everybody gets a ticket because you're responsible for it. It's the same thing here. If you are allowing the law to be broken by having underage people consuming alcoholic beverages at your residence or in your apartment, and you're there, you're in violation. If you're home and you have no idea this is going on, you're fine. You're golden. Here's a question that was brought at the council table. Mom and Dad go on vacation to Florida. The kids stay home. Now, I know none of you ever did this. And while Mom and Dad are away, they have a party. Okay? We call Mom and Dad down in Florida and say, do you know that your kids are having a party at your house? And they say no, and chances are they probably didn't. Are the parents responsible? No. Now, if the parents are there and they are allowing underage people to consume alcoholic beverages other than their own children, they're in violation, and that's where the social host ordinance came in. Same thing here. You're in your residence and you're allowing underage people to consume alcoholic beverages, whether you provided it to them or not, an environment to drink, you're in violation. If you're not there, you're fine, you're golden. That hasn't, you know, and where this other thing came from, I have no idea whether it's a rumor or not.
Was it St. Joe, Kate, just to clarify?
And when did this happen?
Really, that's unusual.
No, the people that were issued those citations were there.
Okay. Just time check here, folks. About 10 more minutes, give or take. And I know there's a lot of questions, but we'll try to get through as many as we can. And maybe these folks, if you guys are kind enough, will stick around for a few minutes and so forth. We have a question over here. Shane.
Hi, I'm Shane Scavel. Oh, sorry. I'm the manager of the pub here. So first of all, I'd like to say, everyone, thank you for coming out here today. It's great to see everyone actually care about our student body. So
Hey,
that's
tip
great
your
to see.
bartender as well, too, by the way.
Also, I would like to say I'm very disappointed that Dean Connolly's not here. Very smart move by him because he knew what kind of territory this was going to be. However, I also have to say this is very cowardice of him, and also really truly shows his caring for the student body.
Wait a minute, can I answer that?
Yeah.
Before I came over today, Dean Connolly is currently working on a situation. He sent me a text. He's going to try and make this meeting if he can, but he was tied up on another situation to let us know that.
Yeah, I got the same. I got an email right before, so
yeah. That's fine. He's also the one who scheduled this. So I've 200 students upset about something that he was supported. I would expect my dean to be here to answer some questions. Also, with the social host, I live in a house off campus. Unfortunately, not many other people are going to be able to live off campus. We have a question. If a student is drinking elsewhere, and we are not having a keg, because we know that if you have a keg and you supply an underage person, that's obviously a no-no. We don't do that for obvious reasons, because we don't want to get in trouble. However, we also enjoy having our friends over. I have many friends who are freshmen and sophomores who aren't 21 who we enjoy hanging out with, whether it's Tuesday night video games or coming over and they might be having a couple drinks. We aren't supplying those drinks. However, let's just say they're not even drinking at my house, but they go and they have 2 beers in their dorm, take the bus in, come into my house. They might blow on a breathalyzer of .02. The fact that they are in my house, I am now subjected to that. Are you willing to supply breathalyzers to every person in every house and residence in St. Joe so I can prevent against underage people drinking in my house?
Okay, first of all, you have the ordinance wrong. As long as the alcohol is not consumed on your property or in your residence, you're golden. You have no problem.
So you would have to, in order for someone to get a citation, you would have to physically watch a person consume an alcoholic beverage at your residence?
No.
Okay, then what's the difference?
How do you show? Yeah.
How do you know that someone's consuming? If Kyle's here, I know he's not 21. If he's at my house,
that's Pepsi.
If he's at my house and you don't see him take a shot or drink a beer or a mixed drink or anything like that, how do you know that he consumed it at my house?
I think that's a good question.
I may ask him, or I may ask you.
Okay, and I'm supposed to babysit every person into my house?
No, hang on. So how do you know? I think that's a fair question. So
okay, I'll answer it all in one thing. Are you to babysit people in your house? Yes.
Absolutely.
You're responsible for your property.
Okay, so when he sneaks a beer...
No, my turn. My turn. Or as Ronald Reagan said, this is my microphone, I can talk now.
Okay.
Okay, the other thing is at this point, what you've got is, you're golden as long as, at this point, they consumed it somewhere else. Now, what do we usually find? There are times we find kegs there. Kegs are going by the wayside, folks. You know that and I know that. The biggest thing we're seeing now is backpacks with beer being carried around. People are bringing their own beer to residents and parties. I know that because I work the streets. I see this. This isn't anything we're making up, folks. We see this, okay? Now, are you responsible for somebody coming into your house and bringing something in? Yes. The answer is yes. I'm sorry, but you are, okay? So if these people are coming in to drink and they bring the beer, then you need to send them out. And if it's getting carried away where you don't want them there, you call us. We're the bad guys because we come over, we break up the party for you. We're still willing to do that and you don't get into trouble. Where we end up with the parties are, we go into parties with 200 and 300 people in a backyard. And don't tell me this doesn't happen because we see it all the time.
It was my house.
Yeah. we have 200 and 300 people in a yard. Okay? We pull up and everybody scatters. What do you suppose happens right about then? We got people going in front of cars. We got people that cut through people's yards, doing vandalism and damage, because when you move that many people, that's going to happen. In most of these large parties, we have people urinating on people's homes, people urinating on their cars. This isn't funny, folks. If this was your place and this was your mom and dad, are they going to stand for that? We had a large party that got broke up on the west side of town. And by the time that party broke up, we made no arrests. But when the whole crew moved through, we had one person that went into a private home, just walked through the door. We wound up with his camper and his house being urinated on. We wound up with trees being broke off. We wound up with people falling over and falling off of basement steps that were out there. Now, I think the people in the community, now let me finish this just a second. The people in the community, I think, need to also have some repose that they can deal with too.
So
I think you just need to be responsible. That's the only thing this ordinance says is
I understand.
Just be responsible.
Yes, I completely understand. And first of all, I'd like to clarify, all of my neighbors are college students and my friends. When we have people over, we are not supplying any alcoholic beverages to anyone underage. We're tight on money too. We're not going to go spend money to give beer to underage kids. That's just silly. Also, in terms of people going to the bathroom outside and on people's houses, if they're urinating on my neighbor's house, they're not on my property. How is this it's not my fault. If someone's at my house and they have been drinking, I'm not supplying them. I didn't see them consume anything,
right.
And I don't care if they're on my property. Why is this your problem that you're handling for me?
Because if the large party was not being handled there in the first place, in other words, you moved these people on, this wouldn't be happening.
Yeah, and I don't think these...
What if I want them in my backyard?
Then you need to be responsible for what your guests are doing.
I don't think there's an ordinance that says you can't have a bazillion
Right.
people in your backyard.
Just take care of it.
Okay, also, I'm not buying the keg ordinance and the fact that it's for our safety. You just want to know where the kegs are so you know where the parties are going on so you can bust them.
Not necessarily bust them, but so I can handle my... No, that's a good question.
Right.
You don't care about the safety and the fact of that. You want to know where you can get the most misdemeanors and if there's a keg
So, thanks to your comment, Shane. Comments?
I have a question.
I know there's a lot of other questions, and we have one right here, and then is there someone on top?
One here.
Okay, let's go up here first, then we'll go over here.
My name is Dwight Eggs. I'm a junior. And what I really wanted to know is, like, following up what Shane said, is the purpose of this. Because you guys say it's about safety, and I really don't know how safe it is because it doesn't really address the problem. All it does is protect the city. And you guys, because at the end of the day, you clearly, the way I'm getting, or the vibe I'm getting from you is that you know that underage drinking is going to occur. And it's going to happen one way or the next. It's just that you don't want it in the city. So who is it really safe for? Is it really safe for the students who are going to be drinking with more underage people in their dorm rooms, unsupervised, or if they're drinking with someone who's overage and who can take, oh, hey, this is your limit, or it's illegal either way. But the point is, it's going to happen. What are you doing? My question is, what are you doing to address these issues?
Passing ordinances. That's what we do. Passing ordinances and enforcing the law. Well, let me ask you a question. If we didn't have a zero tolerance on alcohol and we allowed everybody to drink, didn't care, would that be a safe environment?
I think that was a rhetorical question. I we want to keep this moving on. I'm just watching the time here, so maybe let's take three more. Hang on, Shane. We already had a question. We got two more. We'll do two more questions, and the folks from the city will stick around a little bit. Want to thank you all again for showing up.
Matt, I don't know how long we can stick around. We've got a 7 o'clock meeting.
Oh, it's only 5:45.
I know.
One more question, Pat.
All right. My name is Patrick. I'm a senior. On our campuses, we have something known as the Good Samaritan policy, where if an underage student is in a alcohol poisoning situation, they or a friend can call our security, and then both of them get the attention they need without repercussions with our rules. Since you have passed these ordinances with the idea of safety for underage people, would you be willing to do a medical amnesty in the city of St. Joseph?
I can tell, hang on, I can tell you right now that the legislature is looking into that. That's an issue that just came up, I believe, 2 weeks ago that I read, that they're looking for something like that when they have someone who is in danger, that there would be amnesty there for them to get the help that they need. I think it's being looked at. Would I be in favor of that? You know, really, I don't know. I would have to look at it in its entirety to see what it means. But I can tell you that your legislators are taking a look at that as we speak.
And some of you, hopefully if you've taken state and local, some obscure term you probably heard of was called Dillon's Rule. The state is a unitary form of government, and we can't do anything unless the state like this allows us to do in terms. So I would imagine state law would govern, you know, what cities could do. I haven't heard this in any other city that I know of. I think one of the things in this discussion, when I put out the handouts, you know, I get the feeling from you, you all think this is new. 45% of the state of Minnesota is under such this thing. Great deal of the counties, Minneapolis, St. Paul, I think at least 20 of the 87 counties. This is not new. This is not unique. But that's intriguing. I've never heard of this. But one of the things I want to say about Chief Jansky here is getting retired. He is one of the most highly respected police chiefs in Minnesota. He's award-winning. I really like this, but when I grew up in Seattle, everything was bureaucratic. He brings some good common sense. So he has a department of, what, 7 or 8 people? They probably should have 12 officers. If you look at staffing ratios, they're understaffed as is. He doesn't look to be arresting people. As I said, I really appreciate it. And I've lived in a number of communities in my education career, and this is one of the best. And he doesn't take a hard line, you know, my way, the highway type thing. I think just by listening to him, I think that's the way he approaches it.
Well, they have a council meeting tonight at 7, so these are all, you know, public meetings. Pay attention, and you all have the internet. It's all available on the internet. So one more question with a microphone. Where's the microphone? Up top. Drew, you got one up top? Richie, right here. Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name is Reed. Today I went over some of the ordinances online. One of the things I'm concerned about is regard to the keg ordinance relating to the Fourth Amendment. I think that this keg ordinance is meaningless. It's a piece of paper. I know you did cite people falling out of windows. You cited the kid who died in the street in Chaska, my hometown. I don't think a piece of paper with a signature is going to stop that from happening. And even if you have that, you still can't enter a home unless there is some kind of noise violation or report of a party going on. So my question is, how are you going to enforce this if you can't even legally enter a home without a violation occurring in the first place?
Good question. Very good question. If we see that the violation is there, okay, in other words, in plain sight we see a keg. As you well know, we can't enter a residence just by walking in unless we're invited. But that would mean that if the officers had probable cause and articulable suspicion, they could get a search warrant. Would we get a search warrant? The answer is yes. The city of St. Cloud right now, when they enforce these ordinances, they get a search warrant. They have judges that will sign the search warrants in the middle of the night, and we have done it here before where we've gone in and done this. So the answer is, I agree with you as far as what your rights are, and we don't intend on stomping on your rights. That's not my intent. But if I have to, or the officers have to, the answer is yes, we will get a search warrant come in.
Well, I understand that, but my question is, you would be busting a party even if there was no keg permit because someone would be reporting it, and therefore you'd have probable cause.
Yep.
If you
do it if there's no probable cause.
Permit, you have a keg and you guys don't know about it, you can't just walk into a house and check houses and make sure everyone has a keg permit. Just like you can't just walk in a house and make sure people have gun permits.
Correct.
So,
Yep.
so how is this effective at all? I feel like it's just a punishment on top of social host. So when you bust someone for social host, you can see, do you have a keg permit? No, here's another punishment for you. Because I don't think it's effective at all. I think it's a mean piece of
Well, and I respect your opinion on that, but I would incline to differ with you. So,
Guys, that about wraps it up. I just want to, can we give us all a round of applause for showing up? Power goes to those who show up, so props to y'all. So have a good night.
I see that?